All right, we're live. Hey, welcome back to the Unbridled Living in Costa Rica podcast. Hey, where have you guys been, man? It's been like 2 weeks. It's like I'm looking forward to seeing you guys every Sunday. Grab the popcorn, grab, Allen's apple juice, or, maybe something a little different. Hey, we're going to have a good time. And today is no different. Today, we're going to be talking about, hey, what do you do in the event of an emergency? Do you call 911? And if you do have to call emergency services, what is the number?
911, right?
Nope, that ain't the number.
Not in Costa Rica.
Not in Costa Rica. So what is the number if you have an emergency? Well, we're going to find out that and much more. And we're going to be sharing actual real events. Because look, we had an emergency the last couple of weeks. And we contacted emergency services, 911. And when they came out, they had to call 911 to get help. Can it really happen? I'm not stretching the truth. A true story. We'll share that and much more. But first, hey, this is your first time here. I'm Alan.
I'm Rebecca.
My wonderful co-host. And together we have been in Costa Rica since November 2013. We have traveled all over Costa Rica practically, have lived in over 25 different houses and locations, and just love moving around and just learning all about Costa Rica. And hey, at the Unbridled Living in Costa Rica podcast, it is the only channel that's giving you the whole truth about Costa Rica. And that's simply because we don't have any other services or products to sell you. We don't want to con you, convince you, talk you into moving to Costa Rica so you can buy more of our stuff, right? So, hey, we made every mistake in the book, and we want you to know the cold, hard facts, know the truth. And so today we're talking about 911. But first, what's been happening on the off-grid homestead?
Today, I got wet hair. No blow dryer. I don't have a hair dryer.
Rebecca takes a bath once a week, whether she needs it or not. And she usually does it before the podcast.
But it's so wet here. Had to run in the rain. Can't dry my hair.
So, hey, it is a challenge when you're living as remote as we are. And look, the last couple of weeks have been a serious challenge. Now, look, guys, as you should know by now, you've heard me say it, we're at the end of rainy season. Matter of fact, normally over the last 11 years, rainy season would be over. Matter of fact, the only time it has been this bad was when? Do you remember? As far as rainy season going like yeah.
The first year we were here.
That's right. The first year we were here.
Yeah.
People were like,
it was middle of November, and people were saying the rainy season should be over by now. It should have been over by now. And
yeah. And
now we're saying now.
It ought to be over by now.
It should be over by now.
So rainy season's gone a long time. And unfortunately, where we live at, well, not where we live at. Heck, if you've been watching the news or talking to any locals, all over Costa Rica, the storms have been just unbelievable. All along the Pacific coast and a lot of flat areas, Guanacaste, flooding. I'm talking about, we saw a video the other day my neighbor shared with me where the poor cows in the fields, man, they're up to their chest in the water. And while that's not a bad thing because they can breathe, there's nothing to eat. So poor cows are hungry, and they putting cows on the highway, which then causes another problem. So the cows are eating along the highway, but the traffic, so the rains have been terrible, flooding all over the place, except up in the mountains. They ain't got no floods. But if you don't get floods, well, you get what the locals call derumbles or landslides. Man, and when we came to Costa Rica 2013, in the first month, we found this place. Mm-hmm. And so we've been visiting a lot. And over the last 11 years, I've never seen it as bad or have as many landslides as we've had the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, we had 2 storms back to back that just poured. I mean, just continual rain. We saw sunshine for a little while today.
Oh,
we haven't seen sunshine, and that's something to consider. We've talked about that before. Something to consider when you're contemplating moving to Costa Rica. Realize that there's like half the year is rainy season.
Yeah.
But under ordinary circumstances during rainy season, it's usually sunny in the morning, starts raining mid-afternoon, and
stops at dark.
Stops at dark until like October. Usually October, it's
it will rain a lot earlier and later. You know, very rarely does it rain all throughout the night. But
and it depends on what microclimate you're in.
That's right. That's right.
Have a lot more rain.
And keep in mind, we're not saying this is exactly the way it is all over Costa Rica. We're the experts. Nobody knows what they're talking about.
No, it's different right down the road.
Yeah, we're sharing our perspective, and we have been practically all over Costa Rica. And for the most part, the majority of Costa Rica is like Rebecca just explained. So the important thing is, and look, it's been so crazy here and all over Costa Rica that the last 3 weeks, we haven't been able to leave the house. You know, the landslides have been so horrendous. Usually my neighbor and I were digging it out by hand, but there was so much that we couldn't dig it out by hand. And it just so trapped inside. And I actually managed, we got like a night that it didn't rain and a half a morning that the sun was out, dried up the road just enough for me to get out. And then when I got out, I went and got groceries and got gas for our generator because it's been no sun, so we needed gas to keep the panels going because it just couldn't get enough. Anyway, long story short, I couldn't come back. Matter of fact, my vehicle's still down the road, and we've been hauling groceries and stuff back and forth by hand. So, you know, like Rebecca said, those are things to consider, especially if you're going to be as remote as we are. Now, you know what? If you got a horse, you got a tractor, probably not so bad.
Right. Money solves a multitude of issues.
That's right.
The landslides wouldn't have been such a big deal. We could have gotten out if we had our own little tractor.
If we had our own tractor, or even if you have an ATV, if you got a four-wheeler, right? You can maybe get around some of those things. And we could haul groceries back and forth on a ATV. But, you know, Rebecca's absolutely right. Money solves a multitude of issues, you know.
But you can't buy sunshine, no matter how much money you have.
Are you sure?
And I mean, I've been working every day pretty much in this gloomy, I don't know, just dark clouds, and it affects me. It really does. It affects me. While it's not normal for it to go 2 solid weeks like that, in fact, it's going over 2 weeks now. It's going on 3 weeks easily. It affects me, but I would trade 3 weeks of no sun and gloominess over 3 months of winter in Louisiana any day.
Absolutely. So, I mean, three tough rain, 3 weeks of tough rain in Costa Rica is way better than in the United States. So, hey, but anyway, and I wished I had an update video for you, but man, I have been like nonstop trying to get into the house. We should have been in the house, but with these 3 weeks of nonstop rain, it's hard to get anything done. So,
yeah,
hey,
we were down to eating the food we don't like to eat.
That's right. We're eating scraps. So anyway, so let's get back to emergency calls. Okay, so real quick. All right. It's not a trick question. Not a trick question. If you're in Costa Rica, what is the number you should call for 911? So if you know the answer, put it in the chat box now. What is the number you should call to contact 911 in Costa Rica? Important answer. Important. You need to know this answer, because if you don't, you could be in trouble. Okay. And, you know, kind of like some of the comments that have already come in, while you might think Eduardo is kind of teasing, he's like, well, you know, if it's a big soccer game, you can forget calling 911 or getting an Uber or really anything, because when it comes to a big soccer game, ain't nobody answering their phone. It's like, you better hold that heart attack off.
Yeah, you remember that time we went to a restaurant when the big soccer game was going on, and they wouldn't come wait on us.
Yeah,
they were glued to the television, and we were just sitting there, just waiting. Yeah, it was hilarious. And only in Costa Rica.
That's right. And so, put your comments in there. What is the number to call 911? Now, Randy says, and come on, I'm not gonna give it away just yet. So put your answer in there. If you think you know the answer, even just guess if you don't know, what is the number to call 911? A gringo, he cuckoo. He don't know what he's talking about. Yeah, you look out, you wait and see. I think the answer is going to surprise you. And check out, you know, Eduardo also said, hey, you know, if you do have to call 911, it could take you 15 minutes to explain your Tico address, because it's nothing like the United States. The United States has a and look, this is not comparing the United States, Costa Rica. This is not talking bad about Costa Rica. Hey, we're just giving you the facts, the truth about living in Costa Rica.
We love living here, but you know what? A fact of these last 2 weeks is that if something would have happened, there was no way for emergency vehicles to get here. There's no way for us to get out. We would have had to carry.
Yeah,
you know, we had to get the neighbors.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you was dying of old age, I couldn't tote you out of here.
So, but I suppose a helicopter, you know,
well, now, and that's another story. That there are helicopter services, but I don't think they would come this far. You know, so if you lived in areas like San Jose, hey, maybe a city like San Isidro, they would. But way up here, I really don't think they would come up here. But I don't know the details of that. One of these days, I'll call someone that knows.
Yeah, and I remember wrong that someone had broke their leg hiking to that waterfall not far from here.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, but
somebody had.
Yeah, well, no helicopter came. We went up with horses and got it.
Oh, okay.
You know. So anyway, so you know, and it's like Eduardo was saying, you know. So if you had to call emergency services, once you find out the right number, if you call the emergency services, you better know enough Spanish to give them your physical address, which could be, you know, 2 blocks or 50 meters away from the post office, the White House, across from the big papaya tree, or across from the big oak tree that has the dog tied to it. That's the real address that, you know, that people use around here.
Or even, you know, 50 meters north of where the post office used to be at
before they moved.
Yeah, for real.
For real, you know. And of course, now, come on, there's a few people here on the call, and I want to know, what is the number to call 911? So far, Randy says, call 911. Well, I'm not going to say whether that's correct or not correct, but what is the number to call 911? If you know the answer, put it here, and I'm going to tell you here in a little bit. And hey, seriously, you need to know this. You know, just like if you do call emergency services, you better know enough Spanish, because when you call emergency services and you ask anyone speaks English, they're going to go like, click. You know, so you better make sure you have enough Spanish to explain to them. And so Bruce says, well, let's see, is it 119? Good guess. And of course, Sarong says, it's 911 for the emergency police, fire department, ambulance. I ain't telling you just yet. Keep guessing. Okay. So there is a huge difference. Now, Leo says, he called the emergency services. Wife couldn't breathe. Wait a minute. Wife couldn't breathe. Leo, are you telling me it took 3.5 hours? No one spoke English. And that's when I realized we were living in a third world country. Oh, shame on you, third world country. Well, you're right. It is true, Leo. It's
a developing.
Well, you know, I'm not here to be politically correct. It is a third world country, and people, that's not nice. You should say it's a less developed country. Okay, if you want to call it less developed, you call it less developed. I'm going to call it third world country, and we'll agree it means the same thing, okay? But it is true. It is behind, and just like Leo said, hey, look, wife couldn't breathe. I don't know how she held her breath for 3.5 hours. I'm not making fun, but Leo, I hope your wife was okay. I hope everything worked out. But we can totally understand what you're saying, Leo. And I'm sure it was a miracle.
Where do you live? Was it in the city or up remote like
good question, Leo. I mean, good question, Rebecca. Leo, let us know, what area do you live in that it took 3.5 hours for emergency services to come see you when you called, okay? And now this is interesting. Sarong says, make sure that you have some money to give them for gas, as most of the time they don't have.
I wasn't aware of that, but that does not surprise me at all.
Now, look, this is interesting. Leo says he's 30 minutes from the hospital in San Ramon. San Ramon, is that San Ramon close to San Jose, or the San Ramon Norte that's close to San Isidro? Which one? There's a lot of San Ramons in Costa Rica. I'd like to know.
But anyway, 30 minutes from a
30 minutes from a
hospital.
hospital. Come on, 30 minutes from a hospital. Don't you think that an ambulance could get there a lot faster in 3.5 hours? You know, so that is kind of shocking.
And you know, we wouldn't know any different if we hadn't lived. You know, we weren't from the United States. We wouldn't know any different. We would think that that's just, you know, just the way that things are and normal. So that's why a lot of times we're at a disadvantage of comparing it to, you know, where we've lived in the
Yeah.
United States. You know, Costa Rica is far more advanced and developed than a lot of
Than some other
South
places,
American,
yeah.
which
Latin American countries
yeah,
or
Latin
places,
America,
yeah.
because it's Central America,
Yeah.
but it's way more developed than a lot of
Well, it's
South
kinda-
American
It's like
countries.
Randy says, I moved here because it is less developed. Absolutely, Randy.
And a lot of
You
times
know,
we say, "Oh, we wanted to slow down," kind of like when
I
your
mean,
children
it
are
might
growing
be-
up. We're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
we wanted to stay because we like that too."
it
We
might
don't
be
want
a
it to
third
change.
world country or it might be a less developed country, but that's one of the biggest, let me say this, the biggest reason I like Costa Rica is because it is less developed. I would not want to go back to a concrete jungle in the United States versus where I'm at. So
However-
kudos, Randy, I agree.
However, when it comes to emergency services, we kind of want, you know, but
Yeah,
you can't.
we can't have our cake and eat it too,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Right.
So-
I mean, it's true, you know, when it comes to things like emergency services, when it comes to tech, we want it to be a first world country. We want it to be way more developed, but it's not there yet. Now they're making improvements all the time, but it's important that you know what's happening now, today. Okay. So come on. Am I going to get any more guesses on what's the number to contact 911? Come on. Somebody tell me, because so far you're all wrong. Okay, so far y'all wrong. You're wrong. Sorry, you're wrong. So come on, anyone else gonna guess? I want to give the answer to what's the number to call emergency services in Costa Rica. Leo probably would argue with me, but I'm gonna prove everybody's wrong. Okay, so anyway, I'm taking a look at some of the questions right here, and Leo says that he is 4 minutes in his town in, I don't know where his origin at. Anyway, but like we were saying earlier, he's 30 minutes from the hospital. Surely it wouldn't take that long to get to his house. Okay. And of course, Strong says, especially cops don't have gas for their vehicles all over the country. Most of the years they were, it sounds like they were over in Escazú. So anyway, but okay. I don't think I have anyone brave enough to get it to, or maybe they just don't want to answer. But here's the truth for calling. What's the number to call 911? And this is important, not a trick question. Okay.
I think I know.
All right. So Rebecca thinks she knows. What's the number to call?
Right, 4-1.
Oh, okay. Are you ready? Write this down. It's very, very important. You know this. To call 911, to dial nuevo uno uno. Well, wait. I'm not teasing. Because stop and think about this. If you're at a restaurant or anywhere in Costa Rica and you're around a bunch of ticos and you tell someone, call 911.
Only those that speak English will know what you're talking
And since it's very few people that speak English, you need to be able to absolutely know these 4 words. Ayuda. Ayuda means help. Ayuda. Ayuda. Nuevo. Uno. Nuevo. Uno. Okay, or nueva. I'm not sure which one. But anyway, you need to know how to say 911 in Spanish so that the locals around you can hear you hollering for help. Ayuda. Ayuda. Help. Okay, call 911. Nuevo. Uno. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So while y'all thought I was lying.
I was starting to doubt about the 911. I was like, what has he found out that I didn't know?
While
You
you're
got
looking
me.
at your phone, it might be 911 on your phone. When you talk, if you're around Ticos or anything, you don't happen to have your phone and you're asking for help, you definitely need to do that, okay?
And is Cuatro Uno information here in Costa Rica
That
too?
I think I read. In here. Okay. And Leo was going to argue with me because he was going to say, I was going to say I dialed 911 15 years ago. Did they change the number? So, yep. Like, yeah, you're right on. Okay. So, hey, look, Bruce has got it. He's like, muchas gracias, nuevo uno. So very good. So it's important, though. Really, it is important that you do need to think about that. You need to have your mind speaking Spanish when you're around the locals. And a lot of people don't want to learn Spanish, and we're really trying hard to practice our Spanish, and it's gotten a lot better since we're up in the middle of nowhere, and the only people we could talk to is our one neighbor, and who's, a long ways from us, but hey, we get together. Matter of fact, we had supper with them yesterday. We had chicharrones.
Chicharrones and little green boiled bananas.
That's right, chicharrones and green boiled bananas. So we had supper with our neighbor.
Banana verde.
Banana verde. So anyway.
It's verde, but they say the V like a B.
Yeah. So anyhow, so now let me share a story, okay? So a true story. Kind of, I'm really glad Leo shared his story on how it took 3.5 hours for them to come see his wife who was having difficulties breathing, okay? And look, you think maybe you're pulling your leg. No, that's true stuff. So you need to understand. So
that's something to really think about if you're in poor health.
Yeah, if you're in poor health, you better be close to a hospital. You better have your own transportation, buy your own ambulance. So anyway, true story. The owner of this property, he's an old guy, okay? And this is what he told me. Now, he does kind of like to embellish sometimes, but I think this was the truth. But this is what he told me, and so I got it straight from the horse's mouth, and I'm going to tell it to you, okay? So several years ago, now keep in mind, we do live 2 hours up a mountain, very, very remote. You must have 4x4 to get up here, and the roads are very rough.
Up until just a few years ago was impassable except by horse.
That's right.
Foot.
That's right. So keep in mind that where we live at right now, you had to actually walk in or hike in a mile before you could get here. Now, since we moved here 3 years ago, the road's been cleared out and we can drive here. But at that time, it was impassable, and so the ambulance had to stop at the top of the mountain, or I say in the community, and they had to walk in a mile, okay, to come see this guy. So let me back up. I just kind of painted the picture for you. So my neighbor, he's an old man. He has a heart attack. At the time, he didn't know he had a heart attack, but he had a heart attack. He's laying on the cement and outside, and he can't get up. And the neighbor who was doing gardening, a lady, comes up to do work, finds him stretched out on the cement, hurting, in pain, asking for help, no telling how long he had been there. And so she rushes, because there's no cellular cell phone network up here, no internet, and she races up to a high point to call Nuevo Uno. She calls and contacts him and tells them where to come, and explains she don't know that he's had a heart attack. Old man is stretched out. He can't get up. He needs help, okay? Many hours later, 3 or 4 hours later, the ambulance finally arrives. But when the ambulance arrives, they have to hike in a mile. When they arrive, they park their ambulance. They hike in without anything. I don't know. They might have had some basic stuff in a bag. But when they arrived in and assessed the situation, the guy can't get up, and they did not bring a stretcher. They did not bring a stretcher. They assessed him. They didn't, I don't know what they had, but they had very minimal equipment, and he had to go to a doctor. And so they helped him walk a mile up and down hills and mountains to get to the ambulance. Wait, the guy just suffered a tremendous heart attack, and he's forced to walk a mile after having a heart attack to the ambulance, where the ambulance proceeds to take him down the mountain. They get down the mountain, and kind of like Sharon says, where maybe they don't have enough gas, they were hungry. So they stopped to get something to eat. What? No way. That's what he said. That's what he told me. They stopped to get something to eat, checked on him, and asked him if he wanted to come in, and he's like, I guess so. And so he hobbles into the place, and they get something to eat. And after they get done eating, they get into the ambulance and get to the hospital, where the hospital and the doctor proceeds to examine him with all the equipment. And once you get to a hospital, they do have great equipment. And this happened to be a little clinic in the local town of Buenos Aires. And they said, look, we got to immediately, as quick as you can, no stopping at restaurants, no stopping for gas, get to the next hospital in San Isidro, where he stayed for, I want to say, several weeks. And the doctor said that he had already had 2 heart attacks. He didn't know about the first one, a mild heart attack, and the second heart attack was a major heart attack. And so the doctor said that, he says, look, he says, if you make it through the night, you're lucky if you make it through the night. And of course, he did make it through the night. And hey, right now he's healthy, he's strong, he's better. And that's been about 5, 6, 7 years ago. But that's the horror story of calling 911 in an emergency situation, kind of like Leo, who, his wife was having issues breathing. And so this guy really should have been dead. He should have never, I think it's purely miraculous that he was able to walk into the ambulance. So they should have brought a stretcher. But you have to understand, you are living in a less developed country, and you are living in a place where they're not thinking. Costa Ricans don't think, oh, we better bring a stretcher in case it's a serious. They don't. Okay. Maybe they didn't even have a stretcher on the ambulance. I don't know. Okay. So anyway, that's the story of what happened then. Now, we had an emergency ourselves this past couple of weeks. So as we shared earlier, while no one was sick and no one was hurt, remember, we had landslides that were so crazy, we had to call 911, Nuevo Uno Uno, for emergency services to let them know that, look, we can't get out. And the landslides were so crazy. And our neighbor, his father and mother, they're very old. And, in case of emergency, you have to get out. So they actually, it took probably 2 days, and emergency services sent a dozer up. So think about that. Emergency, you cannot get out. And it took them 2 days to send a dozer up to start clearing the road. And on the first day, the dozer operator fell off the road in his dozer, and his dozer got stuck, and he had to call Nuevo Uno Uno to get another tractor to come help him get out. And it wasn't until the next day that another tractor came out, big old backhoe, pulled the dozer out, and then they left. Didn't even finish cleaning the road. And it was a couple of days later before they did come. And so it took about a week before they actually cleared the road. And it took about a week. They finally got it cleared out, but it's still impassable to this day. So, it's been raining so much. I mean, they did I have to say they did a great job of clearing the road. Okay. So I'm not knocking them.
And there were big trees down. They did good with the.
Well, they had a whole lot of trees down, but so here's what I want you to think about. Emergency services in Costa Rica is very, very different. So you would think emergency services and emergency crew would come down there, and you would think they would have a dozer, and they'd have 4 or 5 guys in chainsaws, and no, that don't happen. That might happen in the United States, but in Costa Rica, there was one dozer operator, and they had one guy who was there with a machete, and that was his main tool. He had a machete, and so his machete would go there, and he'd chop a few branches out of the way for the dozer. He didn't have a chainsaw. So I went over there with my chainsaw, and I'm cutting trees and helping do work with emergency services so that they could get the road cleaned up faster, because they don't come out with chainsaws and all that. That's up to the local people.
And it might be different. I'm sure it's different in the main highways, because we've seen like backhoes and excavator, all that equipment when it's the main highway.
Right. And so keep in mind, I'm glad you brought that up. So if you're living in San Jose, and we always try to say this, we are talking about remote areas, because we've lived in remote areas, semi-remote areas, but if you live right dab smack in San Isidro, dab smack in San Jose, it's probably going to be different. Okay. But where we live at, They didn't send out guys with chainsaws. They didn't send out a helper. They had one guy, and I call him a spotter, okay? He's a spotter to kind of help the dozer to watch everything, cut a few things away with a machete, and that's all he's got.
But I tell you, think about it. I mean, give some kudos, because the first day or two, we were like, we didn't even know if they would send somebody.
Yeah.
Remember? And you went assess the road, and you were like, there's no way we can dig this out.
It would have taken us months.
Right. Even with several men, there was just no way to move those trees, no way to move those huge rocks, and the amount of ground, the amount of dirt that had fallen. So
good thing they did come. But the reason they did come, because several years ago, matter of fact, maybe only a couple of years ago when we got here, and this mile that we're talking about, it's what we call our driveway. It's not really our driveway, but it's the 1 mile road that goes to the main road. And that 1 mile road didn't have a number. And if the road you're on doesn't have a number, Costa Rica really doesn't know about it, and they're not going to take care of it. Once it has a number, then they're obligated to take care of it. So that's something for you to know about. If you move somewhere in a remote area, find out, hey, does the road I live on have a number? Because if it is an established road with a number, Costa Rica or emergency services is supposed to come out and help take care of it, clear it if need be. Okay. So, hey, I'm really glad that they did come out. I really didn't think they would, and many years ago they didn't. Okay. So, and so it's important to understand that the emergency service in Costa Rica is nothing like the United States, or maybe the countries you're coming from. And Leo is absolutely right that Costa Rica's got 3 speeds: slow, stop, and never. That's good, Leo. That's real good. So, it's these are things that you need to be thinking about, and just be aware. We are never, ever trying to talk you into coming to Costa Rica, and we're never trying to scare you away from Costa Rica. But our point is, we want to not scare you, but prepare you. Because if you're prepared, if you're armed with that knowledge, well, then you can decide for yourself. A lot of channels, they don't want to tell you the bad or the ugly, because then you're not going to come to Costa Rica. If you don't come to Costa Rica, you're not going to buy her products and services. You're not going to contract her to help you move to Costa Rica. She told me herself, stop telling people about the bad. I'm losing customers because of you. Well, that's the facts about some channels. Not all channels, some channels. So it's important you understand, we're not trying to scare you, not trying to talk you into. It is important that you watch other channels, learn from their perspective, and understand the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Well, think about, and it's not just Costa Rica. Something, in the United States would happen just with the Hurricane Helene. No one could get to the people that were up in North Carolina and the mountains. They were so far away from civilization, let's say. Once the flooding happened, no one could get to them. So those people, even though they're in the United States, had to consider that. But it's like we kind of know that in the United States, but you move to a foreign country, a little tiny country like Costa Rica, and you kind of think that, okay, it's paradise and there's going to be access all over the place, and it's really not. So even 30 minutes from the hospital, like Leo said, could mean a couple of hours. Yeah. Whereas we're only used to that in the U.S. if you're like really,
very, very remote, right?
Right.
Because in the United States, they can get an ambulance to you in just a few minutes.
If you really have an issue.
Yeah, and Sarong said that she has a blog, and she at one point wrote down all the information, and so she says, I just checked 411-411 and to see if that number was still current, and she said it is still current for information. And when she talked to the guy, asked hablo inglés, in other words, can you speak English? And he spoke good English. Now,
thank you for looking at that.
Great information. Thanks for sharing that. Now, so that is the information, if you 411 for information. But keep in mind, just because she got a hold of someone that spoke good English, hey, she got lucky. He happened to be on shift. It doesn't mean that every time you call 411 or 911, you get, hey, you might get lucky and get somebody that speaks English. The majority of the time, I've been all over the place, even in San Jose a lot of times. And the majority of the time, I hardly get anyone that can speak English. And I've seen videos where people like, man, I went to Costa Rica and I was in San Jose for 2 weeks and everybody knows English. You don't need to speak Spanish. And they mean well. They really do. They just don't know. They mean well, but that's not the truth. So it never hurts to know some Spanish. Okay. Why you don't have to, because we came here not knowing a single word. And they're very, very helpful. It's important that you do know that. And, Randy White says, hey, I'm in San Jose after 2 strokes. He says, I don't want to get too far from the hospital, but my regular driver, so he has a driver that lives close and he is available 24/7. So, hey,
I was going to say,
that's a good option.
The reason we were able to do well, even though we didn't speak Spanish, is because we made friends right when we got here. We
had a guy that was good friend, spoke great English.
Right, really good English, and he started working for us, and he was always available for us to go if we had to go to the bank. He was. So
he helped us out tremendously. Right. So hey,
and I would say if you move here and make friends, find out from your neighbor what is the correct way to say your address in case you need to call. Register yourself with the United States Embassy or whatever country you're from.
Very important.
Register with that embassy, because if something happens, it's important that they know that you are here. I guess also get to know somebody, like maybe a driver.
Yeah,
somebody that could take you.
That is a very good option. I'm glad you shared that, Randy, because, hey, while it might take forever for the ambulance to come by, you don't have to have a car to survive in Costa Rica. And like Randy, hey, all you got to do is be willing to pay someone to be your private driver. And look, I'm telling you, there's a ton of Ticos, your neighbors, they would love to make some money driving you somewhere. So that's always an option. That's a great option, Randy. I'm so glad that you shared that, okay? And so, hey, there are a lot of different options, definitely not trying to scare you from coming to Costa Rica. So you can live in remote places, especially if you want to live as far remote as us, or if you want to, live in semi-remote areas. Hey, just get integrated with the culture. Don't be scared. We're very, very integrated. I'm way more integrated than Rebecca is, because I work with a lot of the locals and they work for me. And so I get to experience a lot of things that Rebecca doesn't get to experience, because she's usually up here on the mountain working and things like that.
And I used to experience a lot more when we lived in town and the other areas of the country that we lived in, because I did the grocery shopping and, I was around people a whole lot more, but we're kind of isolated up here. And a lot of times you go get the groceries just because you're having to go into town for other things, get materials, supplies and stuff like that. And I don't go with you.
Yeah. Okay, so Sarong just updated me that she says, I'm sorry, I was rushing too fast. The equivalent for 411 is do not dial 4111. The equivalent is 1113. Okay, so make sure you write that down if you need to know the important number to contact information.
Well, thank you for verifying.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Sarong. Really, really appreciate that. Okay, so and it's like Randy says, we all have different reasons for moving to Costa Rica, whether you're thankful that it's a less developed country, third world country, whether you're just running from the United States because it's gone nuts, crazy. Maybe you moved here because Trump became president. Maybe he's moving here because Kamala was president the last 4 years. It really doesn't matter why you come to Costa Rica. Everybody's got a different story and a different reason. And for me, we've always just respected whatever you believe, whatever you want. It's your right. Life is short, and you ought to have the right to do whatever you want, believe whatever you want, so long as your beliefs don't affect the lives of other people. It's okay to believe what you want, but just because you believe it's okay to kill people, I don't want you killing me. So anyway.
You said Kamala, but you meant Biden.
Oh, Biden, Kamala, whoever, whatever it is, it don't matter. So anyway, now, Eduardo brings up a good point that, hey, no matter where you live in Costa Rica, you can educate yourself about herbs, and you can grow your own herbs. And he says if you don't want to get sick, have moringa. I used to sell supplements on Amazon, and moringa, great seller. It's a great product. In Africa, moringa, they practically eat the whole tree. I mean, it's got such great things. And so there's a lot of herbs that are medicinal properties and can help you with everything.
I'm very interested in all of that too, Eduardo. I really, when I'm going to have some time, that's a passion. That's, we've bought the books, and I know where I can go to be taught.
Yeah. Now, I forgot what I was about to say, but Sarong did share something, which is a very, very, very good point. If you do happen to call emergency services, the police, whatever, try to always give your WhatsApp number. Okay, give them your WhatsApp number. Give them your Google location. So give them your WhatsApp number. Try to get their number so that you can send them your Google location. Send them your WhatsApp location. Sometimes a lot of Ticos don't use Waze because now Waze is the best one around. If you're trying to get anywhere as far as a directional GPS map system, Waze is the best. That's WAZE. But Sarong, very, very good pointer. Give your WhatsApp number so that if they get lost and they need to contact you, they can. Give your location, Google Maps location, so that they can, if they have internet, it make it easier for them to find you. Because look, the actual physical address is tough, but
that's a great tip. Because the Airbnbs use that because it's so hard to give the address, and they'll put their little pinpoint location.
Yeah, absolutely. So now Sheriff Sparky asked a question: is Costa Rica too small? Argentina is super cheap now with the failures of their libertarian president. And I don't know anything about Argentina, but is Costa Rica too small? Well, in my opinion, I don't think so. I love how small it is. And you would think, now Costa Rica, last I researched, had a little over 5 million people in all of Costa Rica, with more than half of that number in the San Jose metropolitan area, which means you have the majority of Costa Rica is empty. And of course, a lot of it's empty because, well, it's practically unlivable because it's mountainous and stuff. So there's a lot of places, a lot of land. Everything is for sale in Costa Rica. If I had the money, I'd buy Costa Rica. That's how much I like Costa Rica. So, hey, I think Costa Rica is perfect. It's small enough that you can travel from one end to the other. Might take a whole day because, it's mountainous, it's curves and all of that. So anyway,
it's small, but it has a lot of room. It's not over.
And I love that it's so small that in a day's time you can travel to the beach and enjoy beach weather, or you can travel to the mountain and enjoy waterfalls and mountain views. I love that it's small enough I can enjoy several climates in the same day. And this is good to know. Sarong says that she says, I've been here 18 years without a car. Now, she lived in Escazú, and that's over in the metropolitan area. So it's very, 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 very easy for her to get taxis, Ubers, and all that. Now she's over in Playa Flamingo a few months of the year, all around Costa Rica, and she's all doing pet sitting. Awesome way to make some extra money. I love not having a car as I enjoy the ride. So that, that's absolutely awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And hey, pet sitting, that's a great thing to do as far as whether pet walking, making a few extra bucks if you want to do something like that. So and of course, now Bruce asked the question, do you have Starlink for high-speed internet? Absolutely. We now, I had to actually erect towers and everything and installed my own internet system for the first couple of years. But since Starlink is available, I think I was probably the very first person to have Starlink before it was even available in Costa Rica. That's a whole nother story. But anyway, Starlink is awesome. It's great. Now, every once in a while it does buffer. So sometimes we're doing a live, you'll see it buffer. And I think it's just constantly updating. But hey, Starlink is absolutely phenomenal. You won't beat it for the price and the speed of internet. So absolutely, internet is not a problem anymore in Costa Rica since you have, Starlink available in Costa Rica. And like Sarong said, yes, Starlink is available. Equipment's around $200 to $400 depending on specials. But clouds, rains, highly affected. Clouds don't really affect it, but the rains can affect it. Normally the average rain doesn't affect it, but man, the last couple of weeks, these terrible storms that we have has indeed affected our Sarong. So yeah, you're right about that. But I don't think clouds really ever affect it because of the way the signal goes. Because I know that I installed a internet system and I didn't have any problems with the clouds in our internet system. And it's not the clouds, it's the rain. The rains get so intense that the signal can't get through. Clouds are not solid. Rain is solid. So that just kind of gives you an idea. Oh, hey, love this. Sheriff Spark says, hey, my family wants to know what summer camps are in Costa Rica for little kids. My guess, Alawea, but I don't know. Dude, I don't think Costa Rica has any summer camps. I've never heard of one. Now, you know what? I don't know everything, and maybe over in San Jose, but Rebecca and I used to take kids to summer camps, Bible camps, and all kind of stuff when we were in the United States. But as far as I know, I haven't heard of any place in Costa Rica that has summer camps for kids.
No, we haven't heard of it, but
it could be
because just like with nursing homes, we haven't really seen them or know about them, but there are some in throughout the country.
Yeah. So it's always so anyway, we're talking about emergency services. 911 called Nuevo Uno. Be sure to know that word, no ajuda, for help. But anyway, of course, most everybody has a cell phone that works, but you know how it is whenever an emergency happens. I guess if Rebecca was passed out on the floor, I might be going nuts and forget I even have a phone. Help, somebody call 911.
From here?
Not from here, for sure. If we was in town.
If I have to carry you out,
I'm a goner.
I don't know.
I'm a goner. If I'm on the ground and Rebecca's got to carry me out, she'd be like, he's bait. We'll feed him to the lions.
I can tie you to Nikki and
maybe Nikki will help. Now, hey, Sarong says that yes, there are some. He says there's some Facebook groups for families. Hey, that's good to know.
A good resource.
So, and that is a good resource. There are a lot of Facebook groups out there. And now a lot of those Facebook groups really suck because there's a lot of downers on there. But hey, sometimes you can, and I would think, and correct me, I'm willing to bet that if there are summer camps, it's probably some summer camps that some gringos have gotten together and have put on together to help each other out. I bet it's some gringos that are putting on some kind of summer camp stuff. But hey, that would be good to know. That is good to know. Hey, look, Janice shared right here a few part-time in Uvita for kids. Surfing, nature, crafts. Hey, I'd like to know, so who are putting these on? Is it Tico businesses? Is it some of the local gringos that got together to put on a summer camp type thing? I'd love to know about that. And Sarong says that I've visited and volunteered at some of the nursing homes, private and public. And she lives over there in the metropolitan area. And she's, she says there's even some mom groups and stuff like that. And so, that's one of the benefits of living where there's a lot of other expats, because where there are other expats, people that are used to those kind of things will get together, put those things on. And so it's kind of, for us, we never have been big on being around other expats. We're always online, doing what we do online, working online and all that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of people that like to be around other expats. And it's like going to the San Isidro, Perez Zeledon area. You can go to the restaurant Bazookas, and there's always expats getting together, whether they're eating together, playing cards together, doing and meeting together and doing stuff. So all you got to do is just start asking around, and you can find out where those expat groups are. Okay. So
yeah, that's an area that we don't know very much about because, like Alan's saying, we just we're kind of loners with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, we like to be in the remote areas, and but anyway, but we like to we're of course we're talking about emergency services today, but we always like to answer any question that comes up. But hey, we just want to make sure that you are prepared and know that it is going to be a little different, a lot different than what you might be used to, especially in the United States. But hey, it doesn't mean that you can't learn how to adapt and overcome. Hire you a private driver, get to know your neighbors. I mean, we only have one neighbor, and so if I can't get out, he can't get out. So, but the important thing is that we absolutely love Costa Rica. Being here for a matter of fact, this year, well, probably in a day or two, it has been 11 years.
Well, it's past.
Is it past? It's now
13th.
officially November 13th. All right. So there's our Costa Rican anniversary, November 13th. You can send your checks, $1 million checks, gifts, and party favors to somewhere up in the middle of the mountains. Send it by a sloth mail, and we'll eventually get it.
But Sarang answered about the.
Sarang says it's both gringos and ticos, which are on different school schedules for summer vacations, and that's true because you can find private schools where you can have English and it'd be multilingual schools, and then of course and which, like she said, are different summer vacation schedules. Now, a thing that
and their school schedule is
well, thank you so much, Janice. You are awesome. Check is in the mail. And that's another thing that's really, really important. The Postal Service in Costa Rica is very, very, very different. We have actually mailed a very important letter back home to get to our sister-in-law, paperwork that we needed her to get for us, and it took over 6 months to finally arrive. We gave up on it. By the time it finally did arrive, she's like, hey, y'all got a letter. Open it up. Oh, it's that important document you needed. So, don't trust in the mail. And when mail comes over here, very, very difficult to get mail, okay? Mitch says that we moved there in 1999, stayed until 2005. We loved it, and our kids went to private school. See, so thanks for sharing that. Hey, Randy White says, hey, if you hear of any musician retirement communes, let me know. 10 people hired a doctor to come in early every Wednesday. Hey, that's interesting. So it sounds like whatever community he's in, they just hired a doctor to come in. And we're very, very remote. Years ago, they used to actually have a doctor come, because almost every single community has what's called a salon. It's a community center, and this place here, I guess maybe there was more people here years ago, but they used to have a doctor that came up to the salon and checked on people, but not anymore. So, but hey, that's interesting. So anyway, what are the questions, comments, inputs? So now you know the actual number to contact emergency services. What's the number to contact 911?
Nuevo uno uno.
A good student. I must be a good teacher. So anyway, and I see Eduardo goes back and forth to Costa Rica a lot. He said he was going to mail something to his wife in Costa Rica. She said, forget it. Forget it. Don't even do it. And of course, like Randy says, make sure you don't send nothing of value, because if you do, it could easily get lost on purpose. It does happen.
That's another situation of money solves a multitude of issues.
That's right.
I could have chosen to mail that letter
DHL or FedEx,
and it was going to be
$50 or $60 for that one document.
If I was remembering right, but I seem to remember it to be $60. And so I opted not to. I was like, I'm not going to spend $60 to mail
a piece of paper.
And so I used the regular mail, and no,
6 months later.
Idea.
So, so you can mail some stuff. Understand, it's just way, way difficult. But if you use DHL, FedEx, you got something important. That's the way to go if you got to mail something home. Best thing to do is to find a friend, family member, someone that's going back and forth to the United States. Ask them if they can stick it in their bag, bring something back. And that's what a lot of Facebook groups do. A lot of Facebook groups say, hey, look, who's going to the United States? I'd love for you to bring me back a ninja, you know, or something like that.
Yeah, and there's even like on Facebook, there are, what would you call it, concierge services or whatever. There's one, I can't remember the name of it, but it's Tika something. She goes back and forth, and if you contact her, you know, for a fee, she will pick up what you need.
Yeah,
and bring it back.
Now, see, this is good right here. So Eduardo says his wife worked for the post office for 20 years. Ah, she said, forget it. Don't say nothing. Okay, she might know. She might know. Okay. And, you know, hey, Randy says, hey, that might be a good side hustle. Absolutely. You know, I think you might could pick up a few bucks, a side hustle, you know, in other words, say like every once a month, you'd make a plane trip to the United States with 2 or 3 bags and, you know, bring stuff back for people, bring stuff for people, bring stuff back. That might be a good little side hustle, make enough money to cover your plane expense and a little extra. That could be a good side hustle.
Yeah, the plane tickets are not that expensive.
Yeah, especially if you plan in advance, right?
Yeah, especially if you're going to Miami or to Houston. I've never really priced other than Miami
Yeah.
and Houston, so I don't know. But
yeah. Now, you know, Bruce says, hey, any opinion on San Vito or the Platinillo area? Platinillo area, he's planning on visiting in a couple of months. So I guess really the answer just all depends. You know, if you're going to live in either one of those areas, living in San Vito, you just have to know that it's very, very, very remote. Okay, and so while it's remote, they got a hospital right there in San Vito. When I say remote, it's not like remote here. It's just that when it's time to go shopping, there's not a whole lot of selection.
and it's about 3 hours from any beach.
Yeah, but it's close to the border.
Right.
You know, and you could go to the border of Panama and buy all kinds of stuff, you know, and you could buy gas almost half price of Costa Rica. So it really just depends on why you're going to go there, if you're going to live there and all that. And Platinillo, well, that's kind of partway up the mountain on what I call the Dominical Highway between Dominical and San Isidro. That's a nice area.
Beach, but it's hotter. San Vito is high altitude.
Yeah,
And,
great ground dirt if you're planting on a garden.
It's very lush.
Yeah,
beautiful mountain views all over the
and
place.
at Platinillo, while you're only about 20 minutes away from Dominical or the beach, you're only about 40 minutes away from San Isidro. So it's pretty awesome. It's kind of a great in-between place. And while Platinillo is kind of up the mountain a little bit, it's still kind of warm. It's still kind of hot, you know. Unless you happen to get off on a ridge line where you got some steady breezes, right. You know, some places where you can see the water. So I was never real crazy about that area, but it's not a bad area, you know. Depends on what your purpose is.
Yeah, and San Vito's like about 6 hours from the airport.
Yeah, San Vito is about 6 hours from San Jose, you know, and Platinillo is going to put you about 3 hours away, you know. So there's a lot of different things you need to know. Let me take a look here. Now, Sarong brings up a good point here. Be careful having things sent to you on DHL or FedEx. It's not only do you have to pay taxes, but you also have to pay import fees, okay? And that can be very expensive, and you're absolutely right, okay? So, you know, it's important to know that.
Yeah, sometimes it's cheaper to fly back and get what you need.
Oh, yeah. You know, for me, we just kind of keep a list. Next time we go to the United States, I need to pick up combat boots. I need to pick up some camouflage pants. I need, you know, we just make a list of what we're going to get. And really, by the time we loaded up 2 or 3 suitcases, we have paid for our plane tickets for free in what we would have paid in import fees and taxes and all of that, you know, shipping costs. So really, like Rebecca said earlier, money solves a multitude of issues. Hey, just make a plane trip, you know. And, you know, like Janice says here, Panama is awesome for going shopping because you can indeed pick up a lot of stuff down at the border. Be very careful. There are a lot of people that will, I got a brand new iPhone. So cheap, you know, and they start off like $600-700. I actually conned one down to $100. I was the one conned because it wasn't a real iPhone. Looked like an iPhone, but the guts was some crap. So keep in mind, it's going to look like a real pair of Nikes, going to look like a real iPhone. So don't buy something from someone who's trying to panhandle or sell you some snake oil, because it's going to be exactly that. You're going to get jumped.
A lot of scammers down on the border.
A lot of scammers on the border.
Always willing to try to help you
for free.
To stamp out, cross the border.
Help you for free until you get almost through, and then you got to pay. Yeah, so anyway, I can't believe our hour is up. Any last minute questions before we call it a night and see you next week? So any last minute questions that you've been dying to know? Maybe you put it in there and I didn't see it. Spins things go to go. Oh,
private sins.
Oh, I think what he's saying, Eduardo says he knows people that goes door to door selling stuff, never had a problem. And those are different type people. There's a lot of people in Costa Rica that will go door to door trying to sell vegetables, sell stuff. And that's not the problem. But down at the border, you go down the border of Panama, never good to buy anything. It's panhandlers there. So, all right. Hey, I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Randy says this has been very informative. Greatly appreciate it. Best way that you can support our channel is to hit that like, hit that subscribe. Make sure you share. That way, the algorithms will see that people are enjoying it, people are interacting. So it's very important after we shut down that you comment below the video. Share all this stuff that you've been sharing with us, that we've been answering questions to. Comment, because I make sure that everything gets answered so that you can find it. And Mitch says, hey, I just found your channel. Awesome content. And Bruce is like, hey, thank you guys. Always great information. Hey, we greatly appreciate you guys. Always Sunday at 4:30, we do the same thing.
Yeah, and thank you so much for everybody who commented, Sarang sharing and Andy and Eduardo, because they've been here and they have a lot of...
Yeah, you're sharing your perspective.
Right, because we can only share our perspective.
And we greatly appreciate you. So never be scared of sharing your perspective.
Please
hey,
do.
Yeah, there's other channels that tell you, if you don't agree with me, then get off my effing channel. Well, hey, we appreciate you. We don't know everything, and we love learning from you guys as much as we hope you enjoy learning from us. So we greatly appreciate you guys. Y'all have a wonderful night. We'll see you next week, I hope. Same time, same channel, right here in Costa Rica. Y'all have a great one.
Ciao.
Yes, Rivas is a great place. Canan, the Rivas, Canan is right at the top of Rivas. Great place over there. Love it over there. Matter of fact, they got the Hard Rock Cafe over there. It's actually Doodle Rock. Hey, he's got a great big rock in the restaurant. I think you'll like it. Cool place. See you next week.